in this session, we're talking about the emotional engine of communication. You know, probably from communicating with people, that emotions play a very powerful role in how we communicate, how we connect, and how we make decisions, even when we think that we're being purely logical. And neuroscience shows us that emotions are the primary drivers behind 95% of our decision-making processes. So over the next few lessons, we're diving into the emotional resonance of communication and how that will improve your social interaction, both at work and in life, because we know that emotions, in addition to logic, will inform our communication and will help us become even better communicators. So let's talk about this today in greater detail. So essentially, as you can see in this image, right, this is the human brain's limbic system, right? And that's the emotional control center that really shapes so much of our communication. And then those colorful waves around the brain really emphasize and represent the powerful influence of emotions on how we perceive, interact, and respond to the world. So we're going to talk, I'm going to give you some strategies for improving and developing your emotional intelligence so that you can have better communication outcomes, both at work and in life. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the neurobiology of emotional communication. So as we said, the limbic system is the emotional center of the brain, processing feelings before conscious thought begins, right? We first feel the feels, and then we start to bring in some logic in there. Mirror neurons, okay? You can think of these as special brain cells that really help us catch and understand the emotions of others just by observing them. And a lot of people will construe this as emotional intelligence and you being socially savvy and understanding the ins and outs of human psyche, right? Just by observing these behaviors in others. The amygdala is able to process emotional signals absolutely incredibly and very quickly in about just 13 milliseconds. Okay, so we're talking about, a flash in the pan there. So these rapid emotional processing capabilities in our brain allow us to intuitively understand and respond to the feelings of those around us. So that's a little bit about the neurobiology with that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some emotional triggers. Okay, let's go one by one so it's easier to kind of concentrate on those. All right, so emotional triggers, right, are a very key part of how we communicate and how we connect with others. So the first thing is psychological safety, right? That is crucial because people need to feel safe and secure before they're going to open up and communicate with others deeply, whether it be in a professional context or a social context, right? There are basically 4 main emotional response patterns that actually shape how we react in conversations and in our interactions. So the emotional environment and the context of a conversation can actually heavily influence how messages are interpreted. So context is very important and we should not overlook them. And so if we understand these emotional triggers and these dynamics, they will help us communicate with greater fluency, with social fluency, and more effectively. Okay, so empathy, right? We can't overlook empathy, especially in the context of emotional intelligence, right? It is a powerful tool that not only helps us connect with, but also understand others on a much deeper level. And we can actually think of empathy in 3 different ways. There are 3 different types of empathy, main types of empathy. The first one is cognitive empathy, which is understanding others' perspectives intellectually. The second main one is emotional empathy. So that means feeling what others feel through that emotional resonance, the put yourself in someone else's shoes kind of trope that we grow up learning, right? And then there's compassionate empathy, which is basically taking action based on some sort of empathetic understanding. And we know research shows us, and you probably can attest to this yourself in your own social interactions and conversations, that empathy has been shown to increase communication effectiveness by 40% across all contexts. That's huge, right? So understanding and practicing these different forms of empathy can truly tremendously improve our ability to communicate, to collaborate, and to also build stronger relationships with the people around us. So it's kind of a big deal. Okay, so emotional intelligence is a critical skill for success in both our personal and professional lives. So it's something that I really do want you to pick up on as an important, maybe soft skill. You know, people refer to these kinds of skills as soft skills, but they're ones that don't really get taught in school, right? We get taught the hard skills and not so much the soft skills. But that's why we have Explearning Academy and the resources that we share with you here. So let's explore the 5 key components of emotional intelligence and then how we're going to apply them in practice so that you can actually implement them. First up, self-awareness, right? This is the ability to recognize our own emotions and to understand what's driving them. And this really forms the foundation of what we consider emotional intelligence. The next one is self-regulation. So that's essentially managing our emotional responses effectively and responsibly as opposed to being controlled by them, right? When somebody has an outburst, they're letting their emotions control them as opposed to the other way around, right? You want to tame that monkey mind and you be in charge, right? Then we've got motivation. So harnessing our emotions to fuel positive action and drive us towards our goals. This is also a really big deal because, you know, we need to be able to harness those emotions for something positive. And then, of course, we have empathy, which we discussed. That's the capacity to understand the emotional states of others and then respond with compassion and with appropriate responses. And lastly, social skills, right? So navigating emotional interactions with tact and finesse. So let's look at how to put these into practice. Okay, so emotional valence, or the positive or negative tone of a message, actually has a significant impact on how well that message is remembered. So positive emotions like surprise and happiness tend to lead to much higher message retention compared to those negative emotions like fear or sadness. Neutral messages have the lowest retention rate. So it's important to try to infuse messages with some sort of emotional content. And the data on this slide here that you can see shows the dramatic differences in message retention rates for different emotional tones. So when you're crafting presentations and various communications, it's really important. It's crucial, in fact, to consider the emotional impact and aim for those positive, engaging tones whenever possible, because as we know, the retention rate is much higher. Okay, so micro expressions are these brief facial movements that reveal hidden emotional states within a fraction of a second. Body language, including posture and gestures, accounts for over half of our emotional communication. So the tone, the pitch, and the volume of our voice, right? That's what we call vocal tonality, convey a significant portion of our emotional meaning. So we should use our vocal range. Emotional expression can also vary widely across different cultural contexts. So it's really important to be mindful of these differences and then act accordingly. So emotional resilience is crucial for effective communication because it allows us to effectively navigate challenging situations with empathy, with poise, with confidence. And the key steps to building emotional resilience rather, are recognizing emotional triggers, pausing before you react, applying specific techniques to regulate these emotions, and also transforming emotional barriers into opportunities for connection. And so when we apply these techniques, we actually become more self-aware. We become more responsive and more adept at navigating the complexities of interpersonal communication. Okay, so your challenge, your little quest, your mission, if you choose to accept it, over the next week, I want you to observe 3 different conversations and monitor the emotional language and reactions that come up. Okay. So as you observe, I want you to take note of any specific emotional triggers that you notice and how they affected the flow and the outcome of that communication. And then once you gather your observations, take a little bit of time to analyze, okay, how these emotions expressed themselves in each interaction and how they influence the overall outcome. This is going to help you better understand your emotions and how they impact your ability to communicate effectively with others. And this is key to improving our interpersonal communication skills. So as you see, emotional communication is a critical skill for both personal and professional success. And let's remember to build our self-awareness. Let's seek to improve the 3 main areas of empathy, and then just keep iterating and iterating on it, and you will become a stronger, more confident communicator with social fluency. And, you know, this is something that is it's something that you should commit to in terms of communicating more effectively, because with practice and with commitment, you will see greater benefits and better outcomes. So I hope that you enjoy the quest for this week. And in the community, you can share your wins and respond to the daily prompts and the daily tasks so that we can hold each other accountable and just keep putting our best foot forward. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in the next one, and I'll see you in our academy. Bye for now. Happy exploring, everyone.